The galaxy was vast and endless. Stars sparkled like tiny jewels scattered across the dark sky, and planets of all sizes drifted silently among them. Some planets were rich with life, some with mighty civilizations, but among them, many species were forgotten. One of these forgotten races was the Lirathi. The Lirathi were small, delicate beings with amber-colored eyes that seemed to carry centuries of sorrow. They were gentle, intelligent, and peaceful, but the galaxy had no place for kindness without power. Long ago they had been scattered by war, and now they lived on a dying world called Xylaris. Their cities were in ruins, their ships rusty and broken, and their allies were gone. No one remembered them. No one cared. Kael, a young Lirathi, stood on the highest tower of the capital city. He gazed at the stars with a heavy heart. The sky had always been a place of dreams, but now it only reminded him of loneliness. "No one sees us anymore," he whispered, his voice trembling. The wind carried his words into the empty streets below. His family had told him not to hope, not to expect anything from the universe, but Kael's heart refused to listen. He longed for friends, for allies, for someone who would fight beside them instead of ignoring their suffering. The streets below were quiet. Crumbling buildings leaned toward each other, shadows stretching long in the dim light. Children played among the ruins, their laughter soft and fragile like the echo of a forgotten song. Elders sat outside their homes, speaking in whispers of a time when the Lirathi were proud and strong. But that pride seemed lost now, buried under years of fear and neglect. Kael turned away from the tower, feeling the weight of despair pressing on his chest. Suddenly a bright light blinked on the horizon. A ship, sleek and shiny, unlike any Lirathi vessel, cut through the sky. Kael's heart leaped. The humans. He had heard stories of them from distant traders. Strange, curious beings who explored the stars with courage and a kind of stubborn joy. The ship landed softly on the outskirts of the city. Alarms went off in Kael's mind. Humans were powerful. Humans were unpredictable. They might see the Lirathi as weak, unworthy, or even irrelevant. Kael's paws shook as he activated the comm. "Hello, this is Kael of Xylaris."
"Who are you?"
A voice answered, warm and steady, without a hint of judgment. "We are humans. We noticed your signals. Are you in danger?" Kael froze. No one had asked that in decades. Not a single race had cared about their survival for a long, long time. His voice trembled as he whispered, We've been alone for so long." The human voice didn't mock him, didn't question his worth. It stayed calm, patient, and understanding. "You are not alone anymore," they said. "We are here. Tell us how we can help." For the first time in Kael's life, tears pricked at his eyes. He had waited for centuries for someone to care, and now finally, someone had arrived. The humans did not come to conquer or to judge. They came simply to help, and in that moment, Kael felt a flicker of hope ignite within him. As he looked toward the horizon where the human ship stood ready, Kael realized something incredible. The Lirathi were not invisible anymore. Someone had seen them. Someone had chosen to stand with them. And maybe, just maybe, the galaxy was about to change forever. The next morning, the skies above Xylaris were alive with movement. Massive human ships glided through the clouds, their hulls shining in the pale light of the twin suns. Unlike any visitors the Lirathi had ever seen, these humans did not come with weapons drawn in threat. They came with machines that hummed, crates filled with supplies, and teams ready to help rebuild what had been lost. Kael watched in awe as human engineers and medics landed in the ruined streets. They moved quickly but carefully, lifting debris, repairing homes, and treating the sick. Children ran beside them, laughing as humans handed out toys and small treats. Kael could hardly believe his eyes. For centuries, the Lirathi had struggled alone, but now, strangers from the stars worked tirelessly for them. Not for glory, not for profit, but simply because it was the right thing to do. Still, not everyone was pleased. In the neighboring system, a warlike species called the Sorith had long claimed Xylaris as theirs. The Sorith were large, armored, and aggressive. They had no patience for the weak and no respect for the helpless. When they saw humans aiding the Lirathi, fury burned in their eyes. "How dare they interfere?" the Sorith leader hissed. "This world belongs to us." Kael felt a chill run down his spine. The humans had not yet faced them, but the Sorith had fleets ready in orbit. The Lirathi had no chance against such force on their own. Kael's chest tightened. "We cannot fight them," he whispered to himself. "We are too small, too weak." But the humans were not afraid. On the command bridge of their flagship, Commander Elena Reyes studied the Sorith positions with calm intensity. She was tall, confident, and radiated a quiet strength. "Xylaris is not theirs to take," she said to her officers. "We will protect these people. Stand ready, but remember, our mission is to defend, not destroy unless necessary." Kale's ears twitched at her words. She spoke with such certainty, such courage. Could they really protect the Lirathi? Could they actually fight the Sorith? For the first time in centuries, Kale felt hope that was not fragile or fleeting. As the day wore on, humans taught the Lirathi simple ways to improve their defenses. They set up energy shields around key buildings, repaired ancient Lirathi ships, and trained volunteers to operate communications and basic defense systems. Kale joined eagerly, absorbing every lesson, every strategy. The humans laughed when he fumbled controls, correcting him gently, never mocking. He had never seen kindness so combined with strength. By evening, the skies were calm again, but tension lingered like smoke. The Sorith fleets waited beyond the horizon, watching, plotting. Kale knew it was only a matter of time before they struck, yet he no longer felt despair. He had seen what humans could do. He had seen them care, and he knew that even if the battle came, they would not face it alone. Kale walked through the city streets, passing Lirathi families who stared in wonder at the humans working beside them. An elder approached him, voice shaking. "I never thought we would see this," she whispered. "After all these years, someone finally cares." Kale nodded, feeling tears threaten his eyes. "Yes," he said softly. "Someone cares, and they will not let us face the darkness alone." That night, as Xylaris slept under a blanket of stars, Kale climbed the highest tower again. He gazed at the human ships standing sentinel above the city, their lights like guardians in the sky. Somewhere in his heart, a seed of courage began to grow. If the humans could fight for them, maybe the Lirathi could finally believe in themselves. For the first time, Kale did not feel forgotten. For the first time in centuries, he felt hope. And he knew deep down that the arrival of humanity had changed everything. The galaxy might still be cruel, but the Lirathi were no longer alone, not with humans by their side. The dawn broke over Xylaris with a crimson sky, but peace was only an illusion. From the distant stars, the Sorith fleet descended, massive ships cutting through the clouds like jagged blades. Their weapons glowed with deadly energy, and every Lirathi citizen knew the meaning of the looming threat. Fear rippled through the city streets. Families ran to shelters, and elders whispered prayers to gods who had long stopped listening. Kyle's paws shook as he stood on the edge of a cliff, watching the approaching fleet. The humans had fortified the city with energy barriers and defensive cannons, but Kale knew this was the real test. "We cannot hide anymore," he muttered, his voice barely audible. His people were untrained, fragile, and completely unprepared for the wrath of the Sorith. Yet standing beside him, the humans moved with quiet confidence, checking their weapons, coordinating the defense, and speaking calm words to the panicked Lirathi. Then the attack began. The first Sorith ship fired, and the sky lit up with blinding beams of energy. Buildings shook, streets cracked, and the air filled with the smell of burning metal. Kale ducked behind a ruined wall, heart pounding. A human officer, tall and steady, placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "We will not leave you," the officer shouted. "Stay close, follow our lead." Kale felt a spark of courage ignite within him. He had waited centuries for someone to fight for them, and now it was happening. Human ships darted through the sky with incredible speed, deflecting attacks, shielding Lirathi ships, and guiding civilians to safety. For the first time, Kyle realized that bravery did not always come from strength alone. It came from determination, from standing up even when the odds were impossible. The Sorith were relentless. They fired at the Lirathi cities, trying to break the defenses, but every time their blasts came, human shields absorbed the damage. Kale watched as humans moved like a storm, precise, unafraid, and unyielding. Some even flew directly toward the enemy, dodging energy beams, their actions almost reckless yet perfectly coordinated. Kyle gritted his teeth. He could see Lirathi ships, old, rusty, fragile, trying to maneuver in the chaos. A human pilot guided them from the skies, yelling instructions through the comms. "Now, Kale, take the left flank. Don't stop." Kale's heart pounded as he followed the orders. His small ship darted between massive Sorith warships, firing carefully, trying to slow them down. He could feel the fear, the adrenaline, the incredible weight of responsibility. Every time a Sorith vessel was hit, Kale felt hope surge. For the first time, he was not just surviving, he was fighting, contributing, standing alongside allies who believed in him. The battle raged for hours. Explosions shook the planet's surface, but the humans never wavered. They protected the Larathi at every turn, risking their own lives to shield the fragile race that had been forgotten for so long. Kale's eyes burned as he saw civilians waving from behind shields, their expressions filled with awe and gratitude. And yet Kale knew the danger was far from over. The Soreth flagship loomed on the horizon, massive and monstrous, aiming directly for Xylaris's capital. If it fired, countless lives would be lost and the energy shields might not hold. Kale's stomach twisted in fear, but deep inside, a quiet thought emerged. He was not alone. Humans were with them, and together, maybe, just maybe, they could survive the impossible. Kale took a deep breath, gripping the controls. The battle had begun, and the Larathi were no longer just hiding, they were fighting. And in the heart of the chaos, a spark of hope burned brighter than any weapon. For the first time in centuries, the Larathi believed someone truly cared. The skies above Xylaris were torn with fire and smoke. Explosions shook the ground, and the screams of terrified citizens echoed through the ruined city. The Soreth flagship loomed larger with each passing moment, its energy weapons charging for a strike that could wipe out the capital in seconds. Kale gripped the controls of his small ship, fear and determination battling inside him. He had never been in combat like this before, and yet something deep within him stirred, a courage he didn't know he possessed. Humans moved with unmatched precision. Their ships swooped and darted, guiding Larathi vessels and civilians to safety. Kale realized that they had not come just to fight, they had come to inspire. Each maneuver, each shield, each human pilot risking their lives gave the Larathi hope. And hope, Kale knew, was stronger than fear. Commander Elena Reyes's voice came over the comms, calm and commanding. "Kyle, your fleet may be small, but you know your world better than anyone. Lead the Larathi ships to flank the Soreth. Timing is everything." Kale's amber eyes widened. "Lead him?" He hesitated, trembling, but he could hear the confidence in her voice. He could see the trust in the human pilots watching him from the skies. Somehow he found the courage to nod. I'll do it," he whispered, more to himself than anyone else. The Larathi ships, once rusty and weak, rallied behind Kale. He guided them with precision, dodging the massive beams of energy from the Soreth fleet. He shouted over the comms, giving clear, sharp commands, surprising even himself. The humans covered their flank, shielding the fragile ships, allowing Kale's fleet to maneuver. For the first time, the Larathi fought not out of fear, but with purpose, with pride. Kale's small fleet struck the Soreth flagship's weak points. Explosions tore through its hull, forcing it to shift course. The enemy crew had not expected the Larathi to fight back, and their confidence faltered. Kale felt a surge of exhilaration. He could hear the cheers of human pilots over the comms. "That's it. Keep pressing. You're stronger than you think." For the first time in centuries, the Larathi felt powerful. They were no longer victims of circumstance. Their small ships, once symbols of fragility, became instruments of defiance. Kale's heart pounded as his fingers danced across the controls. Every strike mattered. Every successful maneuver built a bridge between hope and survival. The Soreth flagship fired again, but human shields absorbed most of the damage. Kale's fleet pressed on, hitting vulnerable spots with growing confidence. The enemy faltered, retreating slightly as Kale realized something remarkable. They could win. They could protect their world. Kyle felt pride swell in his chest. He was not alone. His people were not alone. The humans had not only stood beside them, they had shown them how to fight, how to believe in themselves. For the first time in generations, the Larathi were defenders, not just survivors. Yet Kale knew the battle was far from over. The Soreth flagship still hovered, dangerous and massive. But something had changed. The tide had turned. With humans beside them, the Larathi were no longer prey. They were warriors. And Kale, trembling but determined, knew that the next strike could decide the fate of their world. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in red and gold, Kale's amber eyes reflected both fire and hope. The Larathi had discovered courage, strength, and the power of alliance. Humanity had taught them that even the smallest voice could make a difference when combined with trust and bravery. And Kale whispered to the winds, "We will fight. We will survive. We are not alone." The battle above Xylaris raged like a storm. Explosions lit the sky in brilliant flashes of orange and blue. Smoke and debris spiraled through the air as the Sorith flagship roared like a beast, aiming directly for the capital. Every Lyrathi heart trembled with fear. The humans fought tirelessly, guiding fragile Lyrathi ships and civilians to safety. But Kale knew the final moment was approaching, the moment that would decide everything. Kale gripped the controls of his ship, his amber eyes burning with determination. The humans had taught them courage, strategy, and hope. But now it was Kale's turn to act. "Stay with me," he shouted over the comm. Lyrathi ships, once trembling with fear, responded to his voice. They darted and weaved through the chaos, small but swift, striking at the enemy's weak points. The Sorith flagship unleashed another massive blast. Energy beams tore through the clouds, shaking the city below. Kale ducked, narrowly avoiding debris. The human pilot guiding him, a woman named Mira, shouted encouragement. "Kale, now! You can reach the core. We've got you." Kale's heart pounded. He had trained for this in theory, but nothing could prepare him for the reality of life-and-death battle. His paws shook as he aimed the small Lyrathi ship toward the glowing core of the enemy flagship. He could feel the heat, the vibrations, the raw energy pushing against his ship.
"For Xylaris,"
he yelled, and with a sudden burst of speed he plunged forward. Explosions erupted around him. Humans provided cover, firing at enemy turrets, blocking attacks, and guiding Lyrathi ships with perfect timing. Kale's fleet followed his commands with precision, their small strikes chipping away at the massive enemy vessel. The Sorith faltered, confusion spreading among their ranks. They had never expected the weak and forgotten Lyrathi to fight with such resolve, and certainly not alongside humans. Kale reached the core. He hesitated for a heartbeat, then pressed the controls with all his strength. The core exploded in a blinding fireball that lit the entire sky. Shockwaves knocked ships off course. Debris scattered in all directions, and the Sorith flagship shuddered violently. Slowly it began to break apart. The remaining Sorith vessels, seeing their leader destroyed, retreated in fear. A silence fell over Xylaris, broken only by the cheers of Lyrathi and human pilots alike. Kale's small ship floated amidst the wreckage, trembling with exhaustion and relief. Tears streamed down his face. They had survived. They had won. The Lyrathi, long forgotten and alone, had finally tasted victory, and it was sweet. Humans and Lyrathi alike hugged and laughed, exhausted but joyful. Commander Elena Reyes appeared on the comms, voice calm but warm. "You did it, Kale. Your people are safe because of your courage and because you trusted each other." Kale could hardly speak. He looked at the human ships hovering above, glowing softly against the smoke-filled sky. We thank you," he whispered. "I never thought anyone would fight for us." Mira's voice came gently, full of warmth. "You fought for yourselves too, Kale. Courage isn't about being alone. It's about standing up even when the odds seem impossible, and today you stood tall." Kale's heart swelled. For the first time he felt true pride, not just for himself but for his people. The Lyrathi had learned something invaluable. They were no longer weak, no longer invisible. With allies by their side, they could survive and even thrive. As the twin suns began to rise, painting the smoke and clouds in gold and crimson, Kale looked down on the city below. Buildings were scarred, streets cracked, but life persisted. Families emerged from shelters, children laughed, and elders smiled through tears. Xylaris had survived the impossible. Kyle whispered to himself, almost as a promise, "We will never be forgotten again, not as long as we stand together, with humans." The Lyrathi had found more than allies that day. They had found friendship, trust, and hope. Bonds forged in fire and danger had transformed a forgotten race into a people who could face the galaxy without fear, and Kale knew, deep in his heart, that humanity had changed everything. The skies of Xylaris were clear for the first time in decades. Smoke and debris still lingered, but the threat of the Sorith fleet was gone. Humans hovered above the city, their ships gleaming softly under the twin suns. The Lyrathi had survived the impossible, and a quiet sense of wonder filled the streets. Kyle walked through the ruined city, observing families emerging from shelters. Children ran with laughter, chasing small human-made drones that hovered in the air like playful birds. Parents hugged their children tightly, tears streaming down their faces. The Lyrathi had always been gentle, peaceful beings, but for the first time in generations they walked with courage and pride. Humans worked tirelessly alongside them. Engineers repaired broken buildings, medics treated the wounded, and pilots helped retrain the Lerathi to operate their ships. Kale observed a group of human instructors, showing young Lerathi how to navigate star charts and communicate with allies across the galaxy. Every word, every gesture radiated patience and understanding. Kale felt a warmth in his chest he had never known before. Friendship, trust, and hope intertwined like the roots of an ancient tree. The elders approached him, their faces lined with age and grief, but also awe. "We never imagined this could happen," one whispered. "That strangers would come and fight for us, care for us, believe in us." Kyle nodded, his amber eyes shining. "Humans showed us that even the smallest forgotten people can have value. We are not weak. We are not alone, and we never will be again." News of Xylaris' survival spread across nearby systems. Other races who had long ignored or dismissed the Lerathi watched in shock. A forgotten race, once overlooked and powerless, had fought with courage alongside humans and had survived an attack that seemed impossible. Invitations for alliances arrived, and for the first time, the Lerathi were respected. Kyle stood on the highest hill overlooking the city. The sun's golden rays reflected off human ships as they prepared to depart. Some waved, others saluted, and Kyle felt a surge of gratitude that words could barely capture. "Thank you," he whispered, "for everything. You've changed our world forever." Commander Elena Reyes's voice came over the comms. "Xylaris is in your hands now, Kale. Remember, strength is not just weapons or ships. It's courage, unity, and trust. Your people have all three. Protect them and never forget what you've learned." Kale clenched his fists, a smile breaking through the exhaustion and relief. He knew the Lerathi were no longer fragile, no longer lost. They had learned to fight, to hope, and to stand with allies. Humanity had shown them a way forward, a way to rebuild not just their cities but their spirits. Days turned into weeks, and the city slowly came back to life. Markets reopened, children played freely in the streets, and elders shared stories of the past while dreaming of the future. The Lerathi were becoming not just survivors but leaders, explorers, and protectors of their own world. Kyle often visited the human ships before they left. Each visit brought lessons in courage, wisdom, and resilience. He understood something profound. The humans had not just saved Xylaris, they had ignited a spark in the Lerathi that would never die. They had reminded a forgotten race that even in a cruel galaxy, kindness, bravery, and friendship could change everything. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Kale stood alone for a moment looking at the stars. "We are not invisible anymore," he whispered softly. "The galaxy knows we exist. We have friends, allies, and hope. We are ready for whatever comes next." And for the first time in centuries, the Lerathi slept peacefully, under skies filled with stars, with the promise of a future no longer defined by fear, but by courage, trust, and the bonds forged with humans who had come to their side. Years passed, but the memory of that fateful battle remained alive in every heart on Xylaris. The Lerathi had rebuilt their cities, repaired their ships, and reclaimed pride that had been buried for centuries. Yet they never forgot the humans who had stood beside them when no one else would. Humanity's presence had changed everything, not just on Xylaris, but in the hearts of the Lerathi. Kyle had grown from a young, uncertain Lerathi into a confident leader. His amber eyes still carried the weight of the past, but now they shone with hope, courage, and determination. He often walked through the rebuilt streets, watching children play under the twin suns, families laugh, and elders teach the young about history, bravery, and honor. The city was alive with life again, stronger and brighter than ever before. The Lerathi were no longer isolated. Other races who had once ignored them now extended invitations for alliances and trade. Kale attended councils, met ambassadors, and shared stories of their struggle and triumph. He spoke not just of battles and strategy, but of the humans who had taught them to believe in themselves. "We were forgotten," he told them. "But when someone believes in you, it changes everything. Courage is not just strength, it is hope shared with those who care." Kyle often remembered Commander Elena Reyes and her crew. Their ships had long since departed, exploring new corners of the galaxy, yet their influence lingered. Humans had shown the Lerathi that friendship and courage could overcome fear and isolation. They had proven that even a small, fragile race could stand tall when they were not alone. One evening, Kale stood on the tallest hill of Xylaris, gazing at the stars. He thought of the humans traveling across the galaxy, fighting battles, exploring new worlds, and protecting those who could not protect themselves. "They are the reason we survived," he whispered, "and the reason we will never be forgotten again." Kyle knew that the galaxy had changed. Humanity's actions had inspired more than just the Larathi. Other races began to see the value of kindness, courage, and unity. The message was simple but powerful. No matter how small or forgotten, every life had worth, and every being deserved a chance. Humanity had reminded the galaxy of a truth that had been lost to greed, fear, and war. The Larathi now traveled beyond Xylaris, joining fleets, trading with distant planets, and sharing their knowledge. They were explorers and defenders, no longer passive observers in the vast galaxy. And wherever they went, they carried the lesson humanity had taught them. Courage is contagious, hope is powerful, and friendship is stronger than any weapon. Kale often returned to the highest tower in the capital, the same place he had once gazed at the stars in loneliness. Now he looked at the same sky filled with possibilities. "We have friends," he murmured, "and together nothing can break us. The galaxy will know our name. The galaxy will know that we are here, and that we are strong." As Xylaris' twin suns set in a blaze of gold and crimson, Kale smiled. The city was alive, the people were strong, and the legacy of humanity's courage lived on in every heart. The Larathi had been forgotten once, but never again. They had been taught by humans that even in the darkest moments, allies could arrive, hope could ignite, and the smallest voice could roar across the stars. The galaxy had witnessed the birth of a new story, one where kindness, courage, and trust reshaped the fate of a forgotten race. Kale whispered a silent thanks to the humans who had changed their lives forever. Their memory, their bravery, and their friendship would never fade. And so the Larathi stood tall, proud, and unafraid, ready to face the future. Alone no more, they had friends, allies, and the unwavering knowledge that humanity's spark had lit a fire that would burn in the galaxy forever.